I'm trying not to sneeze right now, so that's like what I'm.
Oh yeah, focus on that. You know what works? If you imagine a banana flying around the world, it really makes your sneeze go away.
Why did it do that? I don't
I
know
don't know.
why.
Did it work?
Yeah, but I mean, it's still in there. It feels like I should have sneezed.
Welcome to Scary Mystery Surprise.
Where we talk about scary things that surprised us around the internet.
I'm Edwin.
And I'm Michelle.
Everybody here knows Michelle likes history.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't lie here. If as close as I get to history is probably dark history. And when I was researching all this stuff, I was like, there's dark history, like there's war and all these things like that, disaster, a lot of deaths. But then there's also like the paranormal side, and I think I get that specific, like that arm of like, oh, so this is why. So like there's a ghost here, why, what happened? And then it turns out it's a story that happened in the 1600s or the long ago. Very interesting. But if we take it back up to when the White House was being built.
Wait, are we getting in the time machine?
I think we should. I've never led the expedition.
Yeah, we
on the
can.
time machine.
Yeah, we can do that.
I don't know how to do this.
Okay, well, we just get in. What year are we going to?
We're going to 1791.
Okay, well, here we go.
So we are in 1791 now. The White House was ordered by George Washington to be built. Like, it's just like, hey, he's like, hey, we should build a place. And they built the first version of the White House. But that was the temporary home of John Adams and Abigail Adams 8 years after that. And then it was burnt, like, to the ground. Like, it was just a burned down building.
Was that because of a skirmish, like the 1812 war or something like that?
Exactly. Michelle, you won.
Yay!
Yeah, it's the War of 1812. British soldiers became determined to burn it to the ground. Like, that was their objective too, like one of them. And they're like, this is important to the United States. We must burn it down. Anyway, this other guy, James Hoban, was tasked with the redesign and the construction of the new version of the White House. It was ready. 1817, President James Monroe moved in, and it wasn't even fully constructed. Like, some parts are still, you still hear, well, I guess you wouldn't hear drills. You would hear the hammers or something like that. But that place that started with such a rough start, build it, gets burnt, rebuilt, war around there. This is significant. You're starting a new country. So like, it's still like, should we invest in a building that's not going to last because our country's going to die? Is it going to be taken over? Or
these are all valid questions. It was a rough and tumble time, an angry time.
It's like, we built this, we got to protect it. So such a rough start to a place could attract ghosts and sightings of these really tough times. I've never toured the White House.
I haven't either.
As you probably know, some of the best gossip comes from secretaries in businesses. Well, some of the best witness accounts from a place like the White House would come from people that are there all the time, like janitors and other employees.
Like the house staff doesn't change depending on who's president.
There's an official duster, for example. Like there's cooks, doormen, butlers. I don't know they had butlers, but I guess they had butlers back then.
They still have butlers. People can still be a butler.
Really?
Yeah.
Who would have a butler?
A rich person?
Wow, I learned something new. Such was the case with Jeremiah Smith, an employee at the White House who worked there during the Ulysses S. Grant administration. And he worked there for 35 years until he retired. He was all the jobs that I mentioned earlier: footman, butler, doorman, cook, even became official duster, which is official. It's an important job.
It is.
Everybody loved Jeremiah. Like, he was entertaining. He had a bunch of stories. But in terms of ghosts, he said that he had seen Presidents Grant, McKinley, and Lincoln. There was some truth to a lot of those things. Like, there was this thing called literally the Thing. The Thing is the nickname of a teen boy who was estimated to be around 14 or 15 years old. And he was blamed for the hysteria around the White House and this apparition that was there. When presidents get elected, they come in with a new staff and administrators that help run day-to-day operations and stuff like that. But the House staff usually stays, like they're just there.
Right.
During President Taft's administration, staff members started noticing a strange apparition around the house. And that sense was very strange. And members of the staff, when they were standing or sitting, they would feel a slight pressure on their shoulder, feeling almost as if a child was leaning over them to see what they were doing. But a little kid, imagine you're working on something. If you're a little kid, kind of lean over it. It's kind of a familiar feeling. Anyway, that's what the thing was. And they actually found out that this was this ghost, this apparition of this teen boy who was 14 or 15. People that were working at the White House kept seeing this figure, and more people came coming forward saying, hey, this is real. I've seen it too, and I felt it too. Even President Taft had gotten involved and resorted to threatening with an order that any person, not the ghost to leave.
Okay,
but like
I was going to say, like,
yeah.
Okay, Taft.
I order you to leave the White House. And he signs it. It's official. And then you have to. He threatened with an order that any person who spoke at the thing was going to be fired.
Wow.
And also the Obama family said that they would hear strange noises in the hallways at night. They would feel something chewing or gnawing at their feet in the house.
No, it's Lincoln. It's been Lincoln this whole time. Everything indicates that something is there.
One night, twin sisters Jenna and Barbara, daughters of President Bush, were in their bedroom when from the fireplace they started to hear something strange. It was the sound of a piano, and it was music from another era. Also, one time when President Reagan was passing by the Lincoln bedroom, his dog would always bark right at the entrance. And he would just nudge him like, hey, come on, let's just go inside. The dog would not. And dogs know things. I'm telling you, dogs can sense stuff.
And he could sense Lincoln being like, no, thank you.
His daughter, like President Reagan's daughter and son-in-law, also had experiences with the apparition in that bedroom, the Lincoln one. Witnesses to his ghost even include Winston Churchill.
Huh.
Who? What was he? What did he
do? He helped win World War II.
Just that? Like, that's all he did?
He was their prime minister a few times in a few different crises, but I think World War II is probably his biggest claim to fame, is winning World War II.
But anyway, he once stayed in the Lincoln bedroom and then gave his own account that, yes, in fact, President Lincoln did appear in that room. You know, they also say that, I don't know the story here of Andrew Jackson, right? But I know that he was super pissed when he lost to John Quincy Adams, saying that Adams had cheated. He would curse at the walls, stomp his shoes. He was angry. But it seems like that habit followed him in the afterlife, because the room where he stayed, the Rose Room, is thought to be one of the most haunted rooms in the entire estate.
Huh.
He was heard through one of the First Lady's seances, actually, which is Lady Mary Todd Lincoln.
Our favorite spiritualist. I appreciate her.
She would try to talk to spirits in the White House, and she would tell people that she would hear the sound of Andrew Jackson stomping, pacing, swearing through the walls. What would you swear like back then? Like, what were the swears? Was there an F word back then?
That's where I'm kind of at a loss. I don't know for sure. What's the history of the word fuck? Write in, linguistic professors, and let us know. Thank you. Scary Mystery Surprise Cares.
And even President Truman claimed to have heard Jackson stomping. How do they know it was him? I don't know, because he was probably the only one with the
one that
tantrum.
Stomped?
Yeah,
I guess. I don't know.
He wrote it in a letter to his wife, actually. He was saying, quote, I sit here in this old house and work on foreign affairs, read reports, and work on speeches, all the while listening to the ghosts walk up and down the hallway, and even right here in the study. The floors pop and the drapes move back and forth. I can just imagine old Andy and Teddy having an argument over Franklin.
That's a pretty good ghost story he just wrote. Also, to know that you might also become a ghost there.
Who knows? Like, there's just, they say that they hear like the laughter of Jackson.
Huh.
But this is recent too. Like in the 1960s, the staff claimed that they could hear him. Like they know because it came directly from his old bedroom in the White House.
Oh, funny.
And this is all guttural, like, like how they say rich people laugh. God. The East Room of the White House was supposedly the warmest and the driest. So Abigail Adams, the wife of President Adams, had heard. So she would use the room to hang laundry there and to dry it when it's been washed. And remember that at the time, Washington, D.C. was only a small town by the Potomac River. So it has very swampy grounds. And yes, first ladies also did their own laundry. Like that was a thing. But the White House staff would frequently see Abigail wearing her cap and the shawl, heading right for the East Room with her arms outstretched, holding a phantom basket of laundry.
Maybe she really loved doing laundry. Maybe that was like one of her joys in life was doing laundry. The fresh smell of sheets.
Also, there's another story here of David Burns. He was a man who owned the land and sold it for the White House to be built there. And they say that his voice can still be heard there. The first time it was heard, it was President Franklin Roosevelt who heard the distinct voice coming from the yellow Oval Room as it said, "I'm Mr. Burns." Just introducing himself, I guess. A guard during the Truman administration was performing his duties when suddenly he heard the same voice say, "I'm Mr. Burns." He was confused, and then he went to look for the Secretary of State, who was James Burns, Byrnes, and asking around. And after a quick search, he found out the Secretary of State had not been at the White House that day.
Weird.
There's a lot of these ghost stories, but obviously the most famous ghost, President Abraham Lincoln, who already had a series of tragic events following him even prior to when he was a president, and he stopped being a president because of a tragic event. Death.
Thank you for clarifying. I wasn't sure.
It's very, very sad life, very tragic. In 1862, their 11-year-old son, Willie, died. Mary Todd Lincoln was devastated, right? And she started looking for closure in spirits and seances and getting a psychic group together in Georgetown. Some mediums had even gotten invited to the White House, and they would go straight to the Red Room, where they would attempt to contact their dead son, Willie. One of the psychic mediums had written a memoir where she also speaks about these meetings, saying that how even President Lincoln attended some of them with his wife. And she said that the president was skeptical at first, but then became a believer.
Oh.
Something was involved with his dreams. Like he was telling his friend Ward Hill Layman that he had been having a dream that had been annoying him. He was walking completely lost among a group of sobbing mourners when he saw a corpse lying down in the East Room. In the confusion, he asked a soldier who was standing, "Who is dead in the White House?" And the guard replied that it was a president who was killed by an assassin. Soon after that dream, President Lincoln was shot in the head while attending a play when John Wilkes Booth sneaked into the Ford Theater. The assassin managed to escape, but the hunt was on, and it didn't take long for everyone to realize that this had been a conspiracy against the president and not a single person working alone. The authorities managed a quick investigation. They tried the guilty parties. They found a woman, Mary, guilty for conspiring to kill the president, and she was sentenced to death on July 7th of that year. People have heard voices in her old house, along with other noises, especially on the second floor. Mary Todd Lincoln continued with the seances even after her husband's assassination. It was a way for her to process deaths. Like, it's just how she did it. Yeah. It was her way. But President Lincoln still roams the White House and even the Ford Theater, right at that box where he was shot. Some people say that you can hear the sound of a gunshot and screams. The place where he was taken immediately after being shot, which is the Peterson House, people claim to feel a very heavy presence there and overcome with sadness. And you can actually see the real blood-stained sheets on display there today.
They've kept them?
I guess, yeah, they're there.
That's a little weird, but also like smart on their part, to have the foresight to be like, well, he's dead. I guess we should frame these sheets. for history.
I wouldn't do it, but I appreciate it because now it's like, oh wow, those are the actual sheets, or that's his actual blood. Wow.
I guess. I'm surprised Zach Bagans hasn't bought it and like put it in his
Yeah.
museum.
Yeah. They say that even the son, Willie Lincoln, has been seen roaming around the White House by staff members, especially during the Grant administration during the 1870s. But there's a lot, like people say that they've heard Thomas Jefferson and his violin in the Yellow Oval Room. Dolly Madison, the wife of President James Madison, also known to protect the White House Rose Garden.
Oh, that's nice.
President Henry Harrison, who was president for only a month and was the first president to die in the White House, also said to haunt the attic now.
Because he doesn't get the main house, like, so he has to go. Because
he's just like, he was only there for a month, so they're like, sorry,
you have to go be in the attic.
Dang. There's just a bunch of ghosts, like even the ghost of a British soldier that roams around carrying a torch, just like they did during the War of 1812.
Oh, wow.
Even nowadays, like, because it's a huge place, 132 rooms, 6 floors. It's huge. Yeah. People say that with all the history, all the space that's there, it's likely to be haunted because of just all the eras it's lived through. And they say that, you know, when presidents, they're used to living there because they have to, and maybe they want to, they get used to that. And like, since it takes so much out of them, so much energy, sometimes they think like, oh, this was my purpose in life, so they just want to stick around the White House. But it's creepy, just as any historical mansion would be to me. But it doesn't look old and, you know, run down, but it's still like, it's just a cover up. So like, to me, it still has the same value as like this old abandoned mansion, but really this one has been kept, as in, you know, maintenance, constant maintenance.
I mean, imagine talking to all the layers of ghosts on that property, you know? It'd be pretty crazy, you know, going from the soldier with the flame, and then you go to Lincoln with his little foot fetish now, which only developed after death. So, you know, guys, don't at me about this. Lincoln's foot fetish only developed after death, so there's, you know, no historical record of it, but now he likes to suck on toes. So.
Oh, God. Oh, President Lincoln.
Our best friend, President Lincoln.
Man, but like how you said earlier, like it might be weird for a president nowadays to be like, wow, I might actually be a ghost here.
Clinton. I mean, is he playing his saxophone in there? Like, does he?
Yeah.
Does Jimmy Carter raise peanuts?
Will George Bush be looking for oil?
Or painting his weird paintings? Oil paintings.
Anyway, there's still many more stories that are going to develop with future presidents. Hopefully, as long as the United States stays alive and doesn't get invaded or collapses under its own government.
This is a developing story. We'll get back to you.
We'll update. Stay tuned. Please, if you're Apple Podcasts, wherever, Spotify, just leave us 5 stars. Drop some stars, please.
Yeah.
But that's it. All right. What are we going to talk about next week, Michelle?
I don't know, but I think it'll be a surprise. Scary Mystery Surprise is hosted by Michelle Newman and
Edwin Covarrubias. This podcast was edited and sound designed by Sarah Vorhees Wendel of VW Sound.